Welcome to Coach Magic, the show for the woman who is all in on creating a life, business, and family that's beyond her wildest dreams. I'm Jenny Fennig, and I am so excited to help you get confident, focused, and paid. Let's rewrite the rules and get moving in the direction of your deepest desires. Ready, set, go. Hey, it's Jenny, and today we're going to talk about rising above imposter syndrome. I know you've heard of this. You may suffer from this. When I first became a coach, it feels like eons ago, so much of what we were learning and getting trained on and to help our clients break through to the next level was this idea that so many people struggle with a feeling, a thought that we're not good enough. You're not good enough. I'm not good enough. We're not good enough. And that somehow, some way, we're going to be found out that we are not good enough. And so that's where we're going today. I surveyed my audience recently, and this idea came up a number of times, so it definitely jumped out at me. And it's something that so many people struggle with. In fact, studies suggest that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their career. So if you struggle with confidence or with this feeling like you're just not good enough, you're far from alone. What happens when we are living our life from this place of, I'm an imposter, is that this can lead us to burnout because you overwork to prove yourself. And you end up exhausted because overwork is not sustainable. And you also are resentful because literally you have no gas in the tank. You just get really annoyed by kind of everything. And then curveballs are thrown your way because that's life. We're always going to have changes and certain things that come into our life, our calendar, our schedule, our days that we didn't plan on, okay? And when we're burned out, when we're resentful, when we just don't have the capacity to deal with that, it doesn't go well. Oftentimes, people can melt down, they can flip out, freak out, just not be their best self. And this isn't about trying to be perfect because there is a level of perfectionism in this imposter syndrome concept that we'll talk about. But it's a matter of saying, how do I want to live? How do I want to live? Okay. So that's where we're going there today. And I really want to just open you up to this conversation. It's like you and I were having this chat and have you think about how this might be showing up for you. Are you feeling burned out? Are you overworking? Do you spend too much time online? Are you responding to clients at all hours of the day and night? Are you saying yes to things that really it's like no? Are you trying to be this perfect specimen of a human and along the way just completely depleting yourself? I remember I've had a podcast off and on for 7-ish years. And I remember having somebody on my show years ago. And that person said something like, they got to a point where they gave themselves permission to have 2 weeks to respond to an email. And I was like, wow. Now that doesn't fly for all types of emails, but there's certain emails there where it would. So I'm just throwing out that concept for you, especially in the realm of like email, DMs, text. Like we have so many ways that people can communicate with us these days. How do you need to evolve your communication style so that you're not just run down? You're not so anxious because you're constantly being inundated with messages and you don't have any time for yourself. Another way that imposter syndrome can rear its head is that you might not be confident with your pricing or your services, even though you're incredibly good at what you do, because there's that voice inside that says, well, you're really not that great at it. There's other people who do this too. They might do it better than you, blah, blah, blah. And so that lack of confidence will start showing up in the way that you show up and also in the way that you price your services. All right. And for those of you who might be in corporate now, the way that you expect to be paid, salary-wise, profit share-wise, all the other ways that you can have compensation. Like you might not be prone to negotiate or to really ask for what it is that you want, because that imposter syndrome is, how do we want to say this, is like just ruling the show. And again, I see this all the time, and I see this so much with these incredible women leaders who are quite frankly superstars. They have every right to be confident. They're incredibly gifted, talented, experienced, capable. And yet, imposter syndrome is there. Now, this was originally identified as a condition unique to women. And while it is not sex or gender exclusive, it is now believed to be far more prevalent among women than men. And we can have a long conversation on why that is. And that's especially true if you're a woman working in a male-dominated industry. So I want you to think about this, why it impacts women more than men across the board, and what you want to do about it. Do you want to just get ruled by imposter syndrome? Do you want that to be your thing, or you want something else? What I find fascinating, and I did a good amount of research in preparing for this episode, is that true imposters don't actually suffer from imposter syndrome. Isn't that cool? It's like, okay, we know what we need to know now. There is evidence to suggest that imposter syndrome correlates with success, and that those who don't suffer from this syndrome, this pesky syndrome, they are more likely to be the real frauds. Let that sink in. So those with imposter syndrome tend to be perfectionists. Is that you? Are you someone who will work many hours to make sure that you excel in every single category in which you show up in life? Now, I am a fan of hard work. I am. But more than hard work, I am a fan of smart work, wise work. I have, with my kids, all of them at this stage, and not only are they pursuing their academic careers, but they're also athletes. And I will tell you, you're not going to get that far if you're not willing to work your tail off as an athlete. You're just not. That's just the game. I think it's been interesting in the last few years, kind of the online marketing space as well, the online coaching space. There's been this whole like, just don't work at all. And that doesn't work. That doesn't work. But I do believe that we can work intelligently. Like that's the game. What is the game that you are playing right now? And what are the levers that move the game forward, that move your success forward? It's not about just working the most number of hours. No, that's not it. But it's working intelligently. And when you are working, you're working with a lot of force, intelligent force. Like you are using the highest and best use of you, and you're singularly focused on that thing that you do so well, that makes a difference with your clients, with your team, with your people, with your family, across the board. Okay? So you do want to be working intelligently and looking at, if you were to apply force, pressure, energy to this area, what might occur? You have data to support that might occur. You know you have success in that realm, and so you're going to keep that going. You're also going to add some new concepts to the mix, some new applications to the mix. I think what I've seen across the board with high-level, high-achieving women is that we're not done. We love to learn. And so you're always looking at how you can sharpen the saw. And you're doing it, here's the deal. You're doing it from a place of joy, from a place of, I want to get stronger in this area. Not because you don't think you're good enough, but because you want to be the best version of you. And you want to evolve with the times. There's always ways that perhaps we can serve a client better, that we can help create a result And there's so many great tools, resources. The technologies are constantly evolving. But I want you to watch where you might be making some of these moves from a place of imposter syndrome. I have to do this. I need to get another certification, another this, another that, because if I don't, then they'll find me out. They'll realize that I am a fraud. No, we're not doing it from that place. We're doing it from a place of, hey, I want to get stronger in this area because, gosh, it feels really good. It feels so good to be at the top of my game in this space. And I want to take it even to that next level and that next level, right? So imposter syndrome might predict high achievement because a lot of high achievers do have this, but it's not necessary for you to be successful. You don't have to let yourself be ruled by imposter syndrome. Make sense? And so I hope that today's conversation helps to remind you that it is so important to look at why we do what we do, see how we are ruled. What is our motivation? What are the thoughts that go through our head? Are your thoughts serving you or are they hurting you? We can know and believe about ourselves that we're incredible, that we are forces for good, that we are loving, that we have an extreme connection to our craft and why it is that we do what we do. And I also believe that it is crucial to have a life outside of your work. For many, this imposter syndrome shows up in that you overwork. It's like beyond, quote, hard work or smart work. It's overwork. It's overdoing it. And that can sabotage your relationships, your health. You can get to a point and go, oh my gosh, how am I here? I have neglected these areas of my world and now I'm suffering and these people in my life are suffering. And so I have found that a way through imposter syndrome, a way above it, is having a juicy life outside of your work. And that juicy life outside of your work, it makes your work better. It makes you better because you can hold things lightly. You got a lot of stuff going on and it's fun. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you fresh. And you can remember that even when you might have a challenging day in your work, in your business, that doesn't define you. That's not all that you're doing. That's not all that you are. And challenge is part of life. Disappointments are part of life. Sometimes we're down. But what do you do when you're down? When you're down, do you say, that's it? Now I have proof. I'm definitely not good enough. Now we know because I'm down. That must mean I'm not good enough. I should maybe just get out of this game. There's no point. That's what you have to ask yourself. Is that what you're doing to yourself? Is that how you are talking to yourself? Is that the narrative? As I mentioned, my kids are all athletes and we're always going one place or another for their sports. And just recently, we had the pleasure of watching my son Luke and his hockey team play in the league championship game. And what a joy it is to be a parent and be able to, I'm not an official, quote, coach to my kids. They have coaches for their sports, but I know I am one of their coaches in a different way. I'm their mom. And so I shared with my son, because I know how much he loves what he does. I said, hey, leave it all out on the ice. Don't have any regrets. Skate your heart out. We're just giving him some of those fine-tuned messages that he can take into his game, into his heart, alongside the coaching that his hockey coaches give him. And what happened in that game is they were down by 2. So Luke's team, they were losing by 2. The score was 2-0. And this was in the second period of the game. If you know about hockey, there are 3 periods. And so, hey, it's not looking great. Good team we were playing. You know, we're a really solid team too. And if the vibe, the mindset of the team was, that's it, we're down, it's over, we should just pack it up now, then the comeback that occurred would not have been possible. And the comeback did occur. In fact, we tied it up in the third period. Was it the third period? Maybe it was the second period. I'm trying to go back to the game. I think maybe by the end. Yes, it was. By the end of the second period, the game was tied 2-2. All right. And then we got to go in that third period, and somebody's got to make a move. Somebody's got to make a move so a winner can be crowned. And I said a prayer. It was so interesting. This is about manifesting. I said to some of my friends who were at the game, I said, I want to win this game in regulation. In regulation, I don't want to go to a shootout. If you know hockey, if you tie the game, you go to a shootout. And we had that for a recent game. Like, I don't want to do that again. Let's win this in regulation. I was very specific with my ask. And Luke must have heard my prayer because my son scored the game winner. It was so awesome. And I was just thrilled for them, for this team. This was their last game of the season. They went out with a win, with a league championship, and came from behind to be down by 2 goals to win it 3-2. And so that message was, it's okay if you're down. You're still a player. You're still incredibly good at what you do. How are you going to respond? And so that's what I want you to think about. How do you respond when you're, quote, behind, when you're down, when it looks like the chips are not in your favor? What do you do at that time? What are the thoughts that you have? What are the messages that you think? What do you believe is possible? You have to believe in who you are as you, the magic that you bring. And this is an incredible essence that you bring into the work that you do with your clients, with your team, with the important people in your world. But you've got to practice it yourself. You've got to practice it yourself. I want you to think about what kind of player are you in the game. I've been talking a lot about this concept with my clients. There's a game that's being played. I mentioned it here in this episode. Get conscious of the game. Okay? How can you succeed in the game? And I want you to define what success is at this stage of the game. You are not the player that you were. You are not the XYZ, whatever it is that you do today that you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And that's beautiful. You've evolved. You've grown. So what does success look like for you now? Getting clear on this helps you rise above that imposter syndrome because you stop trying to be all things to all people. You stop trying to overprove and overwork and overdo so that some imaginary person or governing body crowns you as good enough. You've got to crown yourself as good enough, more than good enough, worthy, capable, all the things. I have found a piece of my success revolves around not overpacking my schedule. I need space to breathe, so I have gas in the tank for life. Connection with humans is really important on this front, whether that be connecting online, text, in person. I was recently in a yoga class and I felt called to connect with one of my fellow practitioners. We always are next to each other in the class. We like this one section of the room. And I just said to her, hey, do you have time to go grab some tea? We've never done that before. And yeah, I have lots of other things that I could have been doing at that time. But you know what? I had space on my schedule and I just carved some out so that her and I could connect. And we had such a lovely conversation. I have found that that really helps me override some of that unhelpful gibberish that can come through my brain just like it might come through yours. I am not immune to some of this stuff, these shenanigans. I have just figured out what I need to do in my own life, in my own schedule, and the way that I design my work, my world, so that I don't get pulled down, dragged down by unhelpful, unhealthy forces, often of my own doing. Here's what I want you to recognize. So much of this is of your own doing, and it's also society's pressures and the messages that we've received through the media and through others. So maybe you were brought up by parents, teachers, former team members, bosses, where they were workaholics. They were perfectionists, and they demanded so much from you that you just could never reach it. And so that led you to believe that you were not good enough. And so of course you're going to have imposter syndrome. So you've got to rewrite that narrative for you. Okay? Get clear on, here's how I roll, here's how I do my thing, and this is enough. This is enough. This is enough. And you'll attract in others who vibe like that, who are like, yes, that is enough. And thank you for reminding me that I am enough. So I mentioned giving yourself room to breathe. Let's do that now. Let's do that now. This has been a really, really juicy, powerful conversation. Let's take a deep breath together. Hand on belly, hand on heart. Deep breath. Just letting that inhalation and exhalation wash you clean. Feel the beating of your heart. Feel the power that resides in your belly. That creative center. It's like where we create ideas, life, vitality. Feel the connective tissue vibing between those two places in our bodies. Just feeling that, feeling out. Inhalation, exhalation. The message for you today is focus on what you're incredible at and control for that. I think a lot of us want to feel this energy of control. Like so much of our life is out of our control, and so we want to feel like we have some control. And that's completely normal and completely understandable. And so I'm encouraging you to control for what you can control. And that might be to focus on what you're incredible at. And just do that, be that, celebrate that. Be confident in that thing that you do and who you are. And trust that the other elements can be figured out. You can place calls, you can do your research, you can be part of groups. Like I am blessed to lead and facilitate many mastermind groups filled with incredible women, and they come with needs, desires. Hey, here's what I am struggling with. Here's what I'd love some support with. Here's what I'd love some guidance on. Here's what I'd love to brainstorm on. And so your willingness to do that and to trust that the thing that you do, you're super amazing at it, but you can't be amazing at every single thing in the whole wide world. That's okay. And that doesn't mean that you're an imposter. It just means that you're human. And being human is the goal. Let's be more human together, shall we? Yes. So no need to let imposter syndrome steal your fire. Remember that if you feel any inkling of imposter syndrome, it simply means that you are driven for success. You might have some perfectionist qualities. Remember that those who have like zero iota of imposter syndrome, they've never had it. They don't even understand why anyone would have it. Those people are often the frauds, okay? And we should be suspect of. And go and enjoy. Enjoy what it is that you're building. Enjoy how you are shaping your work in this season. Love it up. You have choices in how you do life and how you do business. Make it work for you in this season. And do not let imposter syndrome steal your thunder. You are amazing. You are magic. And it is incredible to be on this coach magic ride with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sending you big love as you do your big work in the world. You're a gift to the people in your world. Go be that. Go share that. Go revel in that. And I will see you next time.